Hi guys, how you doing? I'm doing okay. As I after I finished filming the last episode, not episode video, the last part, the previous video, part two. As always, I watched it, and I noticed. I said a couple of things that I need to straighten out because I think I misspoke. As a matter of fact, I know I misspoke. Okay, first of all, I was unclear. I couldn't remember the exact terminology of what President Trump has been um, at war with, so to speak, and that's radical Islamic terrorism. Okay, not radical Muslim terrorism. Okay, there's no such thing. It's radical Islamic terrorism, and it is those Muslims who are on the radical end of things, and I think they take the Quran a little way too seriously. And because if you read the Quran, it basically says whoever does not accept Allah as God, that person is an infidel and must, well, basically be destroyed. Okay. Now, I looked it up on the internet. That's why it's a great tool. Okay, and what if you read that verse in the Quran, it basically refers to other Muslims. Okay, so if your Muslim neighbor does not accept Allah as God, then he or she is an infidel. Okay, but radical Islamic terrorism takes it the next step forward, which means foreigners, okay, people who are not Muslim, are to be held under that same scrutiny, under that same condemnation. And that's unrealistic, and I think there's a verse in the Quran that prohibits that you leave non-Muslims alone. You do not bother with, you don't mess with them. They are not part of your community. They're not a part of your brotherhood. That people who are not Muslims are not obligated to verses in the Quran, just like in the Jewish tradition that Christians and Muslims are not to be held obligated by the same commandments that Jews are. Okay, so that's why a Jew who prays to an idol or an image, that's a Jew who does that. Okay, that is a grievous sin. That is a cardinal sin. But if a Christian prays to an image, in this case Jesus, okay, then that Christian, because that person is not Jewish, that person is not part of that obligation, and that person is exempt from that obligation because he's not part of the community. So I just want to make that clear, that it's the radical end. So when I say there are two kinds of Muslims, there are the regular Muslims that many are, okay, and then there are the radical Islamic factions who are terrorists, who are at war with the rest of the world, and who shout death to Israel, death to America. And those are the Muslims that President Trump is against and fighting against. So I just want to make that absolutely clear. Okay. Now, with that set aside, okay, we're going to finish off this response to Bernie Sanders. And there will be two separate responses, okay, to what I'm going to play for you now. Okay, two separate responses. Okay, now, this is a question presented to him and how he responds to the question.
Casey McDermott.
Senator, I just want to move on to a different issue here. Your campaign's earned the backing of a number of people who are leaders within the state's refugee communities here in New Hampshire. What kind of conversations have you had with those individuals, and what would you do as president to specifically help refugees?
You know, one of the uglier aspects of the Trump administration is his effort to try to divide us up.
I'm going to stop here.
Divide us up based on the color of our skin, our sex.
That is not true. That is not true. And you know why? Because President Trump and all of us conservatives do not engage in identity politics. Okay, so actually, I stopped here right in the middle of his response because after he said that, I felt I must respond to that. Okay, I don't care what the color of your skin is. I don't care about your sexual orientation. I don't care where you were born. And neither do any Trump supporter, and neither does Trump. We don't care about your identity. You know why? Because we all see every one of us as members of a huge, diverse, one American family, as in the Pledge of Allegiance. One nation, under God, indivisible. Okay? We are not the ones dividing the country up. As a matter of fact, if anything, the Democrat Party is very divided. Very divided right now because you have the radical far left and you have the moderates. And I said this in the previous video, they're each clawing for the multiple vote. And whoever wins the nomination as president to go against Trump, there will be a lot of Democrat liberal voters who will be very upset, whoever they are. If it's Bernie Sanders who wins, then the moderate Democrat voters will be upset. And if it's the moderates who win, then those who support Bernie Sanders will be upset. So the Democrats are very divided amongst themselves. Okay? But they're the ones, even before this election season, they're the ones dividing us up. They're the ones putting us into groups. You know, and I think of the old Ernie segment on Sesame Street where Bert asks Ernie to clean up the living room. And he says, okay, well, if I put these toys into groups, then I could put away a group of toys at a time. Put away all the round toys, the toys with wheels. You know, I mean, it's basic, but that is what Democrats are doing. Put all the gays in one group. Identify all the gays. That your identity takes place before anything else. You meet somebody, hi, are you gay? Okay. Who cares? You know, hi, nice to meet you, what's your identity? We don't say that to people, to hell, we don't care. I mean, that guy who spoke, that CEO of PayPal, I didn't even know he was gay. Okay, and you know what? I don't care. I don't care that he's gay. I didn't care when Elton John announced that he was gay back in the 70s. You know, and you know, that announcement came, I'll never forget it, that Elton John is gay. I said, okay, does that affect his music? No. Does that affect me enjoying his music? No. Okay, so he's gay, that's his own personal business. Frankly, I don't care. I don't care about that. That's your own personal business. And so I don't care the color of a person's skin. I don't care their nationality. I might question it. I might be curious and ask. You know, there's a nurse here who's Asian, and I said to her, I said, hope you don't mind my asking, but you look Asian. What is your nationality? She says, I'm Chinese. I said, oh, okay. And she asked me why. I said, well, because I'm attracted to Asian culture. And I didn't know if you were Asian, if you were South Korean, if you were, you know, what country were you from? And not because it made a difference, but only because I was curious. So I had a little bit of information. And that's all it was. I didn't judge her any differently. I didn't set her apart from anybody else. Because to me, she's just another nurse. And there are nurses of color. And, you know, I says, I don't care. I don't care because they're all nurses. They all do the same job. They all have the same validity. You know, so I don't care. So Trump is not dividing us up. Because Trump and we don't care about a person's skin. All we care about is our behavior, what we do. Do we respect each other? Do we treat each other well? That's all he cares about. Who you are and what you are is your own business. We don't care. So he's not dividing a country. So I just want to make that comment here.
Sexuality, where we were born, our religion, our gender.
Now, our religion, no. Our agenda, yes. Because not so much dividing us in terms of our agenda, but he's identifying agenda like on the left. And you know why? Because the left is so vocal about it. Democrats call attention to their agenda. We're for this, we're for that. Which they have every right to, because they, candidates, they need to tell the voters what they stand for. And all that Trump does during the debates, or the rallies, I should say, is he says to the crowd, this is what their agenda is, this is my agenda, who will you vote for? And that's all it is. That is all it is. There's nothing malicious about it. There's nothing nefarious about it. He's basically saying to the crowd at his rallies, this is their agenda, this is mine. Now, you have a choice. I hope you choose wisely. Boom. End of story. That's all he's saying. Choose the candidate that you feel would make your lives better. Mine or theirs. That is all he says. So that is a very weak defense. Okay.
So the first thing that I think a president who is not a xenophobe or a bigot
again, which is his opinion,
does is say that we are all in this together.
Which he does say that.
And we're going to stop the division.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you're going to stop the division. It's about time you people stop the division. Stop engaging in identity politics. That's how you stop the division. And that's my opinion. Thank you.
That we try to run an administration not based on hatred and divisiveness.
Well, that's good. That's good, as you should.
But on compassion and love.
Which is very good. I'm glad you do. So do we. Okay.
My father was an immigrant. He came to this country from Poland at the age of 17 without a nickel in his pocket, couldn't speak English.
Well, a lot of us were. A lot of our ancestors were immigrants, couldn't speak English. And guess what? They came through the ports at Ellis Island, and that was legal. That was legal. back in the 1890s to, what was it, 24? That was the way everybody, all the immigrants came to this country, through the ports at Ellis Island. And that was the legal way to go. These days, Ellis Island is, I guess, what, a tourist attraction? And we now have other areas and places where we come to this country, and we have an updated process of legal immigration than our ancestors did in the 1890s to the early 1920s. It's different, but it's basically the same. Legal. That's what's important. And that is all we ask. Come into our country legally. Don't break into our country, sneak into our country like someone would break into your house or sneak into your house through a window or back door.
Never made any money, but he was the proudest American you ever saw. And that's kind of the history of America. So we need to stop the demonization.
Demonization of what? Demonization of what? Not immigrants. We need to stop, we can't stop the demonization of illegal immigrants, because then that would throw our legal processes out into the trash. Okay, if you get rid of the legal processes, okay, then we basically have an open door policy. And they may argue it's a Republican speaking point or whatever, talking point, but it is in fact a truth. You get rid of the legal processes, then we have an open door, open borders. Come on in, just barrel in, stamp, just bury yourselves in, hundreds, thousands. No limit. Okay, so the demonization of what? Not immigrants, illegal immigrants. And they're the ones talking about decriminalizing border crossings. Well, if you decriminalize it, it has to be a crime to decriminalize it. You cannot decriminalize something that is not a crime. Okay, so, again, he's entitled to his opinion.
We need to develop policies that address the needs of the immigrant community.
Okay, once you are a naturalized citizen, we're all immigrants, thank you, except for those born here, all right? But once you become a member of this country through normal legal processing channels, you're not an immigrant. You are a naturalized citizen. So a naturalized citizen, what would you rather be? Think about this for a second. What would you rather be? A naturalized citizen or an immigrant? Or an undocumented citizen? Which sounds better to you? Being a undocumented citizen or an immigrant or a naturalized citizen? Which sounds better to you? Which feels better to you? Knowing that you're a naturalized citizen or you're an undocumented citizen or an immigrant. Which sounds better to you? Which makes you feel prouder? Being a naturalized citizen or being an immigrant or an undocumented citizen? That's your choice. Either you're a naturalized citizen or you're an undocumented citizen or immigrant. You have your choice. And if I had my choice, I know what I would pick. I know what I would choose, because my choice sounds better and makes me feel better to being a member of this country.
As President of the United States, I believe absolutely that there is support in the Congress right now, bipartisan support, for comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship.
That is true. I believe that is true. However, I don't think it will go far. But DACA is a controversial topic, and as of now, I have no comment to that because it is so trying to think of the right word. It's a very controversial and unstable, for lack of a better word, issue. Nah, I don't think that's the right word either. Well, I don't know what the right word is, but anyway, DACA citizenship, But anyway, here we go.
On my first day as president, through executive order, I would end all of Trump's racist immigration executive orders.
Okay, that is an opinion. That's not racist. His immigration orders are not racist. They're not racist. The immigration executive orders is securing the border and stressing the need to come into this country, vetting legally so we know who you are. So here we go. This is what I want to point out. I'm sorry it takes 20 minutes to get to this point.
And reestablish the legal status of the 1.8 million young people and their parents for the DACA program, and very much change our border policy so that federal agents are not snatching babies from the arms of their mothers. So
that's what I want to point out to. That's what I want to point out to. I'll repeat this now.
So that federal agents are not snatching babies from the arms of their mothers. So,
okay. Now, we're going to cover this in two parts. Okay. The first part is what I'm going to say right now is that it sounds to me that Bernie Sanders still believes the current year is 2017 by that statement. Okay. That's what it sounds like to me. That he still believes the current year is 2017 and there has been no change to that. Well, I would like to bring the senator through the next few years, okay, so that he can be brought up to date. And we're going to see right now if what Bernie Sanders believes is still a reality.
An estimated 90% of the cocaine that comes into the United States passes through the Mexican border. And in a disturbing trend, the cartels are now turning to children to carry the illegal drugs. As CCTV's Mike Kirsch reports, it's a journey that puts their lives and futures at serious risk.
At the U.S.-Mexico border in Nogales, Arizona, American border agents say there may be no greater concentration of illegal narcotics in one place than those smuggled through their border post from just over this fence in Nogales, Mexico. Every imaginable drug for export, like those sold locally in pill form or individually wrapped for a quick fix or high. Sold by shopkeepers like this in the back of his store, who asked me not to show his face. Says he sells them to help feed his family.
That's crystal meth. How much is the crystal meth? This is a $20 rock.
That's cocaine? That's crack?
That's crack.
And how much is that?
That's $10.
Heroin, or black tar, is a local favorite.
Black tar, $40.
That's your black tar heroin?
Yes.
He says the amount of drugs available locally are nothing compared to the massive amounts smuggled into the U.S. each year. How is it getting across?
It's many ways. Yes.
One way in so-called super tunnels like this one, recently discovered by U.S. authorities running underground from Tijuana, Mexico to San Diego, California. Several tons of marijuana and cocaine confiscated. And back here in Arizona, U.S. border agents have caught drug smugglers using storm and sewage pipes under Main Street in the middle of downtown Nogales. And they just recently stopped a tractor-trailer truck trying to drive through the border here with 10 tons of marijuana worth $10 million, a record bust in Arizona. Drug cartels also pay working-class Mexicans to walk the drugs through the official pedestrian border crossing. Many caught and photographed by U.S. border agents each year. And now, rather alarmingly, with so many adults being caught, Mexico's drug cartels are increasingly recruiting school-aged children to sneak drugs across the border, says Vanessa Cartwright, a local deputy county attorney in Nogales who prosecutes them.
And what we're seeing is that they will utilize these kids to achieve that goal, who are bringing in just huge amounts of narcotics. Sometimes we see marijuana, but for the most part, it's methamphetamines, heroin, and cocaine.
The cartel, she says, recruiting the many Mexican-American kids here born to illegal immigrants on the U.S. side of the border, as well as kids who've moved back to Mexico with their parents who've been deported. The kids still holding their American citizenship documents and are able to move back and forth across the border legally quite easily. Like this 16-year-old high school student who we'll call Melissa, recently caught by U.S. Border Patrol agents with a kilo of heroin. She's facing up to 12 years in a U.S. prison. Melissa's American attorney allowing her to speak to CCTV if her face isn't shown.
I was in school with my classmates, and one of them called me to meet up. She started telling me about the smuggling across the border and asked me if I wanted to do it. She began to sweet-talk me, inducing me to first watch how others did it and how easy it seemed. They convinced me, and I ended up agreeing to it. They tell you at first the pay is $500, and then depending on how much you're willing to take with you, you'll get more money. They take advantage of your innocence. They never explain the risks of smuggling. They make sure to deceive you with their words in a way that seems like nothing bad can ever happen.
And nothing bad did happen at first, she says, as she successfully passed through this pedestrian border crossing like hundreds of kids do each day to go to school in Nogales, Arizona. Once across, she says she was then instructed to board one of the many privately run shuttle buses that transport passengers north to Tucson, Arizona. Tucson and Phoenix, further up the highway, are well-known distribution centers for Mexico's drug cartels. Once smugglers make it here, the drugs are transported to major cities across the United States. In tracing Melissa's route north, I boarded one such Tucson-bound shuttle bus with a concealed camera. The vehicle filled with passengers, including this young woman and young man sitting in front of me. 20 minutes into the trip is a U.S. Border Patrol checkpoint on the highway, where border agents routinely search shuttle buses like this one. The mood inside this bus seems rather tense. It's unknown if anyone aboard is smuggling narcotics. This border agent questions the young woman in front of me.
You ever been arrested before? No?
Everyone makes it through. But that was not the case when border police stopped Melissa's shuttle bus.
I was very nervous. I was so desperate when the police caught me that I didn't even know what I was doing. My mind went blank. They found drugs on my body. Heroin.
Being arrested was bad enough, she says, but then the drug cartels want to know what happened to their drugs.
But if they hold you responsible for the loss of the drugs, they will expect you to pay it back.
And the same applies when a kid gets busted attempting to carry cash from drug sales back to the cartels in Mexico.
They put $100,000 inside.
In Melissa's case, the kilo of heroin she lost to authorities was worth around $50,000. Melissa, say prosecutors, is lucky she's still alive.
I think that she is extremely lucky. I think that these cartels, they don't play around, and the kids are not old enough to really comprehend what they're getting themselves into.
And as Mike tells us, many of the children, like Melissa, caught with hard drugs, face long prison sentences and a lifetime of hardships. You can watch Mike Kirsch's entire report on cctv-america.com.
Well, thank you very much. We're signing an executive order. I consider to be a very important executive order. It's about keeping families together, while at the same time being sure that we have a very powerful, very strong border, and border security will be equal, if not greater, than previously. So we're going to have strong, very strong borders, but we're going to keep the families together. I didn't like the sight or the feeling of families being separated. There's a problem that's gone on for many years, as you know, through many administrations, and we're working very hard on immigration. It's been just left out in the cold. People haven't dealt with it, and we are dealing with it. So step by step, just like we dealt with North Korea, we dealt with Iran, we dealt with an economy that was heading in the wrong direction, we dealt with a lot of different problems. This is one that has been gone on for many decades. So we're keeping families together, and this will solve that problem. At the same time, we are keeping a very powerful border, and it continues to be a zero tolerance. We have zero tolerance for people that enter our country illegally. With that, I'd ask Mike Pence, Vice President, if he'd like to say anything.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. And I think what the President's made clear is we believe it's a false choice between whether we are a country of law and order, a country with borders, and a country that demonstrates the compassion and the heart of the American people and respect for families. By taking this action, the President will make it possible for us to continue to engage in enforcing the law against individuals who violate our law, come into our country illegally, but now we'll be able in that prosecution in the immediate days forward to keep families together as that goes forward. But we are calling on Congress to change the laws in this regard and in a broad range of areas that will secure our borders and give us strength and confidence that we are once again going to take the steps necessary to end the crisis of illegal immigration in America.
I think the word compassion comes into it, but it's still equally as tough, if not tougher. Secretary Nielsen.
I just thank you for your leadership, sir. We look forward and expect the House to act this week. We ask them to do their job. The laws need to be changed. This is a problem that president after president has dealt with for decades. This one is willing to stand up and fix it. We ask Congress to do their part. Thank you, sir, for your leadership.
Thank you very much. Great job. Okay. You're going to have a lot of happy people.
President, why did you wait so long to sign this? You've seen this covered for 40 years.
It's been going on for 60 years. 60 years. Nobody's taken care of it. Nobody's had the political courage to take care of it, but we're going to take care of it. It's been going on. It's been going on for a long time.
Do you think you're backing down? Critics
No, the border is just as tough, but we do want to keep families together. This is a problem. If you look at some of those horrible scenes from a few years ago, to me, they were horrible scenes. They were just terrible. And that was during the Obama administration. Other administrations have had the same thing. We're keeping the family together. And so this is it. And also, there may be some litigation. We're also wanting to go through Congress. We will be going through Congress. We're working on a much more comprehensive bill. A lot of good things are happening toward immigration and proper immigration. But we have to have strong borders. And ultimately, we want to see it done right, and it will be done right. But what we have done today is we are keeping families together. The borders are just as tough, just as strong. They can come in through ports of entry if they want. That's a whole different story. And it's coming in through a process, and the process is what we want. So I want to thank you all very much. I think this is something
What is your level of frustration that you still don't have money for the border wall with Mexico?
Thank you very much, everybody. We'll get the wall. We'll get the wall done. We'll get the wall done. Yes?
Did Ivanka Trump show you photos of the children being separated from their parents?
No, Ivanka feels very strongly. My wife feels very strongly about it. I feel very strongly about it. I think anybody with a heart would feel very strongly about it. We don't like to see families separated. At the same time, we don't want people coming into our country illegally. This takes care of the problem. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Kate. She's done a great job. Thank you.
A migrant caravan headed for the United States was halted by Mexican authorities on Saturday. Mexico's National Guard forcing the group of about 2,000 migrants from, among other places, Africa, the Caribbean, and Central America to turn back hours after they started their journey. President Trump struck a deal with Mexico, remember, to suspend tariffs on their goods if they helped with the migration crisis. And it looks like that's what's happening. Here with more, we are joined by the Acting Commissioner of Customs and Border Protection, Mark Morgan. Mark, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Well, it looks like when the president threatened Mexico with tariffs, that got their attention, didn't it?
Absolutely, Stephen. This is an example where Mexico has stepped up.
Yeah.
I mean, they really are acting as true partners, seeing this as a regional crisis. You know, back in May, we were seeing between 40 to 50 large groups in a single month. Last month, we had one, and now this is another example where Mexico is stepping up and doing exactly as they promised they would.
Okay, so explain how it's happening. Obviously, there's intel. They know that a large group of several thousand is on the move. Then what do?
That's exactly right, Steve. Not to make it too simplistic, but that's right. We're working with them together, law enforcement to law enforcement. We're sharing intelligence on the smuggling organizations and the routes they're using, and they're just using that intel and applying good law enforcement techniques, and they're identifying where these caravans are starting, and they're interdicting them, they're stopping them, turning them around.
Okay, and speaking of turning them around, one of the things that the president had asked Congress to do was to close the loopholes. They did not. And one of them was catch and release. But now, given the fact that the administration is following new rules, what's going on with catch and release?
Steve, so that's exactly right. What I can say along the southwest border, the catch and release for families, it's done.
Yeah.
And so now the message now is if you grab a child, that is no longer your immediate passport in the United States. Because of this president and this administration, the networks of initiatives, rules, and regulations that have been implemented, we are absolutely making progress. Again, for the last 120 days, last 4 months, we've reduced apprehensions by 65%. So it's those rules and regulations by this administration, but it's also the hardworking men and women of CBP and ICE that are executing and implementing those rules.
Absolutely. Mark Morgan, we thank you very much for giving us an update from our nation's capital.
The search for the fugitive.
Oh, okay. And we'll end it here, and we'll continue, I guess, in part 4. Oh my gosh. Man, this is going a lot longer than I originally anticipated. So, let's see how it goes. I believe this will be the... I'm all choked up about this. Damn. But, I believe this will be the end. Part 4 will be the end of it. Because so we'll see. I'll see you then. When I hope I finish with part 4. Hopefully there will not be a part 5. So we'll see how that goes. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'll see you later. All right. Take care. See you soon. All right.